Raise your hand if there's no fear in your workplace. Yeah, you're all out there thinking, let's see, he said that would be brain damage, right? It is impossible. Here's something you can do, though. There will be fear in your workplace. Are people afraid of change? Raise your hand if you think people are afraid of change. Nobody likes change but a wet baby, right? You're all dead wrong. People are not afraid of change. If I could change your job right now by doing two things, adding a zero to your paycheck and taking a zero off the number of hours you have to work every week to earn it, are you afraid of that change? Oh, this is hypothetical, by the way. People are not afraid of change. What people are afraid of is the uncertainty that goes with change. This is vital for you to understand, because if you as a manager believe people are afraid of change, you're going to behave in a very different way than if you understand people love change, as long as it comes with a guarantee. And you can't give them a guarantee. So your biggest job in many cases, especially in a fast-changing environment, is to equip your people with the courage to deal with the change. Teach them how to manage their anxiety so they don't become paralyzed, so they don't panic. Now, the master of this was Herb Kelleher at Southwest Airlines. They're flying along, they're growing, they're doing great, they're hiring people, they're adding staff, and then United Airlines, the 800-pound gorilla in their industry, decides to start United Express. How much credibility would Herb have had if he had gone around and said, honey, I don't want you to worry your little head about this one bit. We've got this all under control. Your job's not at risk. Though United, they were just not that good, you know. How much credibility would he have had in his company? Absolutely. They have wondered, you know, he drinks wild turkey. They'd have thought he'd just had one too many. He knew that. He knew you can't drive fear out of the workplace. He also knew he had to channel it. Because if people start becoming afraid they're going to lose their jobs, they're not going to take care of the customers. So he said, the fear is out there. You know what he did? He went out to an Army surplus store and he bought an old set of bat fatigues and a World War II helmet and a toy gun. And he went around, he sent a letter to all his employees, and there's been big capital letters that says at the top, commencement of hostilities. And he went around to all the units and he said, this is war! We're going to fight on the runways and in the hangars and in the skies, and we shall never surrender. Is it any wonder that they love Herb Kelleher at Southwest Airlines? That war is over. Who won? That's right. That's right. And that's a big part of your job, helping people deal with the fear that is and the anxiety that's an inevitable part of life. Core action value number 3 is perseverance. Very often the difference between the winners in life, the people who get what they want, and the people who don't, is simply this. When it gets tough, and if you're trying to do something important, it will get tough, the losers quit and the winners don't. There are a lot of quitters in healthcare today. Every time you hear a doctor say, I'd never go into medicine today, he's a quitter. He's already quit, and he's trying to convince some young person to quit before they even start. Every time you hear a nurse say to a nursing student who's just come up on the unit, are you crazy? That person has quit. They have quit their profession. Their body's still on the job, but they quit emotionally. And they're trying to convince some young person to quit. And we wonder why we can't get people to come into the profession. The answer's in the mirror. All the quitters who are out there bitching and moaning and complaining about how tough everything is. When I came out of hospital administration school to do my residency in 1973, the old gray-beard administrator said, you know what? This really sucks. It used to be so cool, and then Medicare had to come along and blow everything. Well, of course, now we know Medicare was the greatest thing in the world. Right now it's managed care, or whatever comes next, BBA, DOA. I've been out of this stuff for a while, so I lose track of all this. One of the greatest opening lines of any book that's ever been written. The best of times, it was the worst of times. What do we have in healthcare today? The answer is yes. What do you choose to see? Any of you ever been to the State Fair in Des Moines, Iowa? I saw how many hands went up yesterday for Disneyland. This is obviously a culturally deprived group. I went 3 years ago to the State Fair in Des Moines, and I overheard this conversation. You see, there was this cowboy up from West Texas. You ever met a Texas cowboy? Oh, they are one of a kind. He's strutting around in his 10-gallon hat and his snakeskin boots. He's got a belt buckle the size of a dinner plate. And he runs into a farmer from Maine, polar opposite kind of personality, quiet and conservative. And the Texas rancher, as they will, he's going on and on about how big everything is in Texas. And if you've ever spent the night out in the prairies of West Texas, you know it's true. Finally, he stopped for a minute and he says, well, enough about me. Tell me about y'all. Tell me about your farm up there in Maine. How big is it? Maine farmer says, well, I got 12 acres, grow potatoes, make some maple syrup, got a few goats. Texas rancher says, 12 acres? Why, my place in Texas is so big. I get up in the morning and I start my pickup truck, and it's afternoon before I'm on the other side. And the old Maine farmer, he thinks about that for a minute. Yeah. To have a truck like that. What have you got? A big ranch or a slow truck? Is it the best of times or is it the worst of times? And the answer is yes. Course value number 4 is vision. Jonathan Swift said, vision is the art of seeing the invisible. And the cornerstones are dissatisfaction. If you're totally complacent and happy with what's going on now, where's the motivation to change? You know Jeff Foxworthy's definition of a neck? House has wheels and the car doesn't. That's where you live. But if you're totally happy with that situation... The second is attention. Pay attention. Mark Thatcher was laid off from his job as an oil exploration engineer. He made a list of all the things he'd love to do, and there was only one thing on the list: whitewater river running. Now, can you make a living as a river rat? Yeah, but not a very good one. He said, you know, I want to have a nice house and all that too. He looked around. The answer was literally right there at his feet. Because if you're running whitewater, you're going to fall out. You go down feet first. You got to have something on your feet. Flip-flops fall off. Tennis shoes get wet. They stay wet. They're uncomfortable all day. So he invented the world's first sport sandal. Called it Teva. You probably call it Teva. You probably all have some in your closet. First year he sold 200 pair. Last year he sold $60+ million worth. He's got a beautiful home in Flagstaff, Arizona that looks out at the San Francisco peaks. He built his dreams. Now, he worked very hard. It took a lot of all of these values, but it started with an act of paying attention. Your patients will define quality not on the basis of clinical quality, but on the basis of how well you pay attention to them. The third cornerstone is imagination. He said, if you can dream it, you can do it. I heard about a little girl. She's in kindergarten, and she's drawing a picture of a tree. And the teacher comes over and looks down and says, well, Katie, I've never seen a purple tree before. Katie looks up and says, gee, that's too bad. Where do we lose the ability to see purple trees? And finally, the fourth cornerstone is belief. My favorite passage in the Bible is Mark 9:23. All things are possible for one who believes. Now, I heard about a guy who had a dream, and he used all this stuff. This guy wanted a new car. He wanted a Porsche 911 Targa GT Silver convertible 6-speed. He wanted this car so bad he went out and he bought a bunch of car magazines, started cutting pictures out, putting them up everywhere, at work, at home. He even put one up on the mirror in the bathroom. And his wife walks in and looks at it and she says, oh, honey, you know, this is a bathroom, not a garage. Do you even have to put your car picture up here? He says, yep. Every morning when I shave, I look at that and I say, that's going to be my car. She just rolls her eyes and says, oh, you've been listening to those motivational tapes again, haven't you? 2 years later, the man pulls into the driveway and he guns the engine of his Porsche 911 Targa GT with the top down and he hollers out, hey, honey, come on down and take a ride. She looks out the window, says, my goodness, that stuff really does work. And they go out for a nice long ride through the countryside. Next morning, the man comes down. He goes in the bathroom, and there on his wife's side of the mirror is a picture of Robert Redford. 2,500 years ago, ancient sage Lao Tzu in China said, the greatest of leaders, when their work is done, they go away and the people say, we did it ourselves. And isn't that what leaders do? They create more leaders. Let me wrap up with a story that to me really captures a lot of what I stand for and what I think these 12 core action values stand for. And you'd probably be disappointed if you went through this whole conference and didn't hear at least one speaker tell a traveling salesman story anyway. I live in Iowa. And you know, in Iowa in February, the roads get really slick and icy. And one day this traveling salesman, he's driving along, making his rounds. He's a little late. He's going a little bit fast. He goes around a corner and he hits a patch of ice, and off the road he goes into the ditch. Well, he's sitting there in the ditch going, oh, I'm going to be so late. And he's looking at his watch, and he looks down the road, and there's an old farmer on a cart being pulled by a mule with blinders on. And the man jumps out, and he waves down the farmer, and he says, excuse me, sir, I'm stuck in this ditch. I wonder if you could come help me get out. Farmer climbs down. He says, well, I don't know. Old Elmo here, and he pats the mule on the back. Old Elmo here, he's quite old, you know, and blind to boot. But we'll give it a try, see what we do. So the farmer unties Elmo from the wagon, ties him up to the hood of the car. Then he jumps up on the car like this, and he cracks his whip in the air one time, and he hollers out, yeah, Hercules, heave! Nothing happens. He cracks his whip a second time, and he hollers, yo, Samson, heave! Still, nothing happens. He cracks his whip a third time, and he hollers, yo, heave! And slowly, that old mule starts pulling the car up, gets him out of the ditch, back up on the road. Well, farmer is unhooking Elmo from the car, tying him back up to the wagon. Salesman comes over and says, sir, I cannot tell you just how grateful I am. Who knows how long I might have been here had you not come along. Help me get out of this ditch. Just one thing I don't understand. What was this business about Hercules and Samson? You only got one mule. The old farmer says, well, heck, if Elmo had a thought he had to do it all by himself, he wouldn't even have tried. It seems to me that every time I look out at an audience, people are looking back at me and they're thinking, Joe, when you talk about thinking bigger, when you talk about becoming the person you're meant to be, when you talk about living these values, when you talk about changing your organization, you think you're talking to Hercules or Samson, but I'm just Elmo. And you know what I want to say? I want to say, oh, you're Elmo. So am I. So is every person in this room if we try to do it all by ourselves. But if you become a leader, if you try to help the person sitting next to you feel like they're Hercules, you help the person over there feel like they're Samson, and then you hook up with them like you're a team, there's not much we can't get done. Not in the world of today. And that's what leadership is all about. Let me close with my 7 favorite words. Never fear doesn't mean don't be afraid. It means stand up to your fear with courage and do what you know you have to do. Become the person you know you're meant to be. Don't stand there behind the prison bars of fear. Never quit. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your organization or your patients or the people you work with. And the last 3, expect a miracle. Not a magic trick. The greatest miracle of all is the miracle of personal transformation. The greatest miracle of all is the miracle of becoming the authentic you, the magnificent, wonderful person you're really born to be. Never fear, never quit, expect a miracle, and have a great day. Thank you very much.